We are very lucky to have an opportunity to talk with Bishop Tom Gumbleton, who was one of the founders of Pax Christi USA, an early Pax Christi USA Bishop President, and a long-term participant and friend of Pax Christi International. Tom is an inspiration to Pax Christi people around the world, to all of us who care about peace and who try to turn our lives in the direction of peacemakers. He has visited many times Haiti and El Salvador and Iraq over and over to express his solidarity with people who are surviving and victims of war and terrible violence. So thank you very much, Bishop Gumbleton, for giving me this time.
Thank you for doing this.
So tell me, how did you first become interested in peace? What first drew you to become a peacemaker?
Oh, well, it was the anti-war movement in 1960s. And at that point, it was an anti-war effort. And that went on for a number of years till the United States. It was clear we were going to begin to get out of the war. So in 1972, a number of us who were involved in anti-war movement, and another bishop, Bishop Carol Dozier, and I started to say to each other, it's not enough to be against war, we have to move from this into a peace movement. And then, of course, we talked to other people, and very quickly, people agreed, anti-war is important while we're at war, but that isn't enough. We have to build peace. And so there was about about a dozen of us who met then in November, the year, I think it was 1972, at Bishop Dozier's home. And we talked all day. We had meetings, discussions, trying to decide what to do. And finally, we came up with the idea of the various peace movements. The best one for us to be involved in would be Pax Christi. And we knew there was Pax Christi International. And so we decided to connect with Pax Christi International and become a national section. And it went on from there. And we got became larger and larger, and gradually spread throughout the country. And one of the things we did that's kind of fallen down a bit, but we made a special effort to get Catholic bishops in the United States involved. And at one point, I think we had almost 150 bishop members, not just bishops who allowed it to go on in their diocese, but members. And some of them became quite active. Yeah. And so that was a move to try to make sure that we could get into Catholic parishes and connect with Catholic people. And and of course, we are doing.
From your perspective, Bishop Gumbleton, what is peace?
To start with, it's the absence of war and the absence of violence. But to go beyond that, it's shalom, which means fullness of life, means everyone having an opportunity to have access and use of all the resources of the earth, so no one is in need. That we would have peace when we have justice, which is what I mean by justice is when all people have a right to what they need for a full human life. And so peace is just life for everybody. Peace is an ability to grow into the person that God wants you to be. So it means you have access to necessary education, to health care, that sort of thing. And so it's really, peace is what it will be when the reign of God is in its fullness. And all of us are living in a way related to that love that God has for us, and we're living according to the way of God's love.
Do you think peace is possible?
I do, because Jesus promised it, so it has to be possible. He did say to us, my peace be with you, and peace that I give is a peace that the world cannot give. But I give it, and it's never going to be taken. And so peace can, I can live in peace by being at peace within my own heart. And even if there's violence outside of my heart and, the world around me. If I'm really related to Jesus, then I can be at peace and in peace. And that's, I think we all have to cultivate that, the relationship with Jesus, so that we share his inner peace, because it's so clear in the scriptures, even when he was in the midst of turmoil and suffering, deep within him there was a peace. And he, you could tell from what he said and how he acted toward his disciples. In spite of the attacks against him, he was at peace. And that's what we strive for, first of all, and that's what peace is, first of all. Then it goes from us beyond, just as it did with Jesus.
And you have a very deep commitment to nonviolence, as does Pax Christi globally. What does it mean to be nonviolent? What is nonviolence in this violent world?
It's, I think, better described as active love. It's always reaching out in love, and even returning love for hate, returning nonviolence or active love against violence. And so it's nonviolence means rejecting violence for any reason whatsoever, even as Jesus did. Even when they were attacking him, Peter wants to defend him with a sword. Jesus says, no, put down your sword. And he would not accept violence being used to protect him. And so when we talk about nonviolence, we mean always responding, even to violence, with love, responding to hate with love, and transforming hateful or violent situations into peaceful and love-filled. The main challenge is to be authentic and being Pax Christi, that is, the peace of Christ. We have to live and kind of make that peace within ourselves, live that peace in order to spread that peace. And so if we really become Pax Christi, peace of Christ, then that's the challenge, to be that in order to spread that peace of Christ in our world, transform our world into the reign of God.